Okay, we are on. Hello, my dear.
Hello.
Thank you so much for letting me get inside of your beautiful mind. And I loved your story. Now, first, I want you to help me to learn how to say the name of your story.
Ho'oponopono.
Ho,
Ho'opono.
Ho'opono,
Pono.
Pono.
Yeah.
And I just
Ho'oponopono.
think it's so appropriate because I also think ho, ho, ho. It's
That time.
that time of year.
Mhm.
So I want to start off talking to you about the idea of being a voyager. What is a voyager? And because this is our journey together, and this is how we found each other voyaging
Yes,
through this time capsule we're in. So what is a voyager? And are you a voyager?
I am a voyager. I am definitely a voyager. Oh my gosh, my life has been filled with so many wide and varied experiences. And I literally voyage from one place to the next. I've worked all over the US, I've lived in Canada, I've been to Europe. Like, I really voyage. I'm making the most of this lifetime. So,
Love it.
and yeah, and I think, to be honest, I think we all are voyagers.
Mm-hmm.
I just think some are more aware that
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're doing,
Right.
you know, than others. But
Right.
yes, life is a voyage till you get to the other side.
Yep.
That's when you reach land on the other side.
That's right. I love it. So, what is your story about, and why do you think it's important to share it?
I guess in a nutshell, my story is about forgiveness,
Mm.
learning to forgive yourself. It's about taking care of yourself. I'm a caretaker. I take care of everything and everyone. I always have,
Mm.
except for me.
Mm.
I never really took care. I was so busy taking care of everyone else that it was like I didn't matter.
Mm.
But honestly, I matter the most,
Right.
and I was not completely unaware. Like, somewhere in the background, I'm like, yeah, I know I should be doing this or I should be doing that. Um, but I think it's a lesson in, there's a lot of lessons in this story, not just for me, but for others, that, came into contact with me and witnessed what I was going through. But I think it's a story of healing,
Mm.
healing and forgiveness, healing myself, forgiving myself, learning to, sit down because I had no other choice
Mm.
and be aware of what was going on around me, particularly in the setting I was in a rehab hospital where there was some really ill individuals there and people who couldn't even get around as much as I could. I was in a wheelchair, but I was still mobile.
Mm.
And so there was a lot of stories that came out of that 3 months for sure.
Mm-hmm. How do you think your story can help someone?
I think by reading it, I would hope they would become more self-aware of what they need, to make their life complete, to make
Mm-hmm.
their life full. And it's fine to take care of others. It's great. I'm a very nurturing person. Um, but I learned it's a balance. It's about balance. You
Yeah.
have to balance what you do for yourself along with how you're helping everyone else,
Mm-hmm.
see the light, basically. And
Right.
I would hope that they would learn, there's other ways to deal with things like pain. And, you can calm down. There's other ways of calming down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I believe in medicine. I go to the doctor. If I need medication, I take it. But if I don't need it, there's other ways I can calm myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ho'oponopono prayer is one of
Mm-hmm.
them. And for me, it works.
Yeah.
It'll calm me right down. It's heart-centered. It's a
Mm.
heart-centered prayer.
Hmm.
And I think when anyone learns to drop down into their heart, that's where you learn the most.
I like
And
that.
it's learning to drop down into your heart and feel it there. And then you can calm down.
I love what you just said. That really just, I don't know if I've ever heard it put quite like that. It's a heart-centered prayer. And
It
and
is.
the and when you said that, I was thinking to myself, well, how would you describe that? But you're right, because we can be in our head and maybe be saying the right things or even be praying, but we don't really come down to this calm, serene place until we
Right.
get from our heads to our hearts.
Yeah.
And that's an art. I don't know what that is, but it's something that, what do you
You
think?
have to make a conscious effort
Mm-hmm.
to do it. Like I didn't just start doing it overnight. Like I
Right,
had to realize, get out of your head,
right.
and drop
Yeah,
down into your heart. See how that feels. Sometimes it's scary.
right,
I'm not saying it's easy,
right.
but once you do it, once you learn to do it,
Mm-hmm.
it's comforting.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know, just push past the fear
yeah.
and just drop down and feel it. Don't be afraid to feel, which
Mm-hmm.
often a lot of times I was afraid to feel the emotions. I wouldn't let them come up. I kept them pushed
Mm-hmm.
down.
Yep.
And you've got to feel that. If there's emotion, let it come up,
Right.
release it. But
Connect. It's like a
yeah,
connection with
connect with it.
yourself.
Connect with yourself and dropping down. I like that phrase, drop down into your heart.
I like that too. Yeah,
And
that.
even when I meditate, like I try to go there, drop into
Mm-hmm.
my heart and let it rest there.
Yeah, I love that. I loved your story, and I think that it's amazing with all of our stories how, you know, we we write our stories with different intention. Um, Maybe the intention is I want to inspire, or I want to shine a light on a certain quality that may help people, or whatever the case may be. And so we have our intention, and then there is the myriad of responses that people can have to the same story, which can be all kinds of different,
Absolutely.
because it just kind of depends on the frame of mind that we're in when we're reading a story, and how those words fall on our hearts. And for me, when I read your story, I couldn't help just think about grace and the power of grace. And that grace is just one of these things that it's hard, it's not tangible, it's hard to describe, but it's a power. And so I want to just kind of walk through different parts of your story
Okay.
that struck me
Mhm.
personally.
Sure.
And the first thing that struck me is when you, I think it was when you were in the hospital and that one word dropped into your conscious mind, Ho'oponopono.
Mhm.
And my question was, can you discern the difference between a download into your conscious mind from a greater force versus your human mind coming up with the idea? How would you help someone who has self-doubt, unable to discern the difference? Because that was a download.
Absolutely, it was. It's
Yeah.
like because I had just started, I had not been practicing Ho'oponopono that long at that time. I was
Mhm.
very new to it. In fact, I still didn't even really, I was trying to understand how it actually worked. Like it's a very Zen concept because
Mm.
it's so easy. It's like
Mm.
you think it would be harder. No, it's just four phrases. You know,
Right.
I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you have to say.
Yeah.
And you just say it over and over. And I'm like, how is this helping? Like my, you know, monkey mind
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know, okay, I need to know how this is working precisely.
Right.
Well, you can't explain it like
Right.
prayer.
Yeah.
You put it out there. And so I was in the throes at that point of my life in trying to understand it. I'm like, okay. And it was like the universe was saying, okay, remember this Ho'oponopono? Because
Mm-hmm.
I was still in the ER at that time. My ankle was broken, my leg was shattered. It was a hot mess. And I'm like, okay. So I thought I'll just start saying that. Well, it did. It calmed me right down.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, well, that's good. If it's calming, like I don't know about the healing part, how that's going to work exactly, but if it'll calm me down, so be it. We'll use it. And I think you have to trust your instincts. It took me a lot of years listening to that inner
Mm-hmm.
voice,
Yeah.
which said, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then you do it and you're like,
Right.
I shouldn't have done that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's, it's my guides talking to me like,
Mm-hmm.
don't do that. Here, go this way. I'm like, no, I'm going to go this way. I'm like, oh wait, I should have gone that way.
Yes.
And I think you have to learn to trust your intuition. And
Yes.
that's how you determine, is this me having a conscious thought, or is this coming from somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
And once you learn to trust that in yourself,
Right.
it takes away, there's no more thought about, is this me or is this something else?
Right.
You just
That's
have to
right.
trust your gut.
Yep. And it's so powerful when we do, because it opens up so many other doors.
Yes.
It's just like a door that opens, that opens, that opens. Right after that, you were talking about how Ho'oponopono works with the cause, not the symptom, that the symptom helps guides us to the cause. What did you mean by that?
um it's like I said, because it's a very Zen type of concept.
Mm-hmm.
um it doesn't, it's not like a band-aid that you can
Mm-hmm.
actually, like, okay, here's the cut, I'm going to put this band-aid on it, now it's
Mm-hmm.
fixed. It's not like that. It sends out a conscious healing. It sends
Mm-hmm.
healing to everyone. When you say it, I'm not just saying it for me, I'm saying it for everyone. I'm saying
The collective, yeah.
the collective. It's not just about me. And that's the difference
Mm.
in saying, please help me, versus I forgive whatever brought me here.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happened that caused me to be here, I forgive it.
Mm-hmm.
I forgive whoever put me here. I forgive, whoever put that
Right.
metal bar at the door that made me trip. I forgive them for
Mm-hmm.
putting it there.
Right.
It's a Zen concept, and I can't even say I totally even understand it
Yep.
today. I accepted it
Mm-hmm.
for what it was,
Mm-hmm.
and um, you know, looked at it like that, and I just kept
Mm-hmm.
repeating it, and it just kind of stays on repeat in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And it did the whole 3 months I was there, for sure. Like, I made a conscious effort. Every
Mm-hmm.
time I think about it, I would say it. And I
Yep.
think that's the difference, the cause and effect. You can't really see it right away. In fact, I didn't even really, all I realized at the time was that it was making me calm down.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only effect I was personally seeing,
Mm-hmm.
until it evolved into, there was no pain.
And that, when after I read your story, I started chanting it right away. And I did notice, I mean, it was very clear, just calm that came over me. And so I thought it was very powerful. So I want to read another part of your story where you said, because you were just alluding to the pain part, and you said, I find I have no anxiety, none at all. To me, this is incredible. I've had surgery before, and I clearly remember the levels of anxiety I experienced before. While the anesthesiologist is happily drinking his coffee and conversing with me, I am still chanting silently. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I almost feel happy. I'm praying this good feeling stays with me and is not replaced by the crippling anxiety I've known most of my life. For hours later, they awakened me in the recovery room. The surgery is over and everything is now being held in place by titanium plate and 12 screws. Whoa. There is a great 10-pound cast that covers my foot and comes up to my knee. But the first thing I notice immediately upon regaining consciousness is that I am still repeating the 4 Ho'oponopono phrases in my head. It was literally my first conscious thought. So I said in my little questionnaire here, something magical was happening in the moment. Was it grace? How do you describe the power of grace, and what do you think attributed to your sense of well-being and peace? I mean, that's powerful. It is hard to describe, but
It is. I think I think part of it was grace. Grace is the universe saying, let me help you with this.
mhm,
You know, I don't expect you to do this by yourself. Let me help you. That's grace.
yeah,
Um,
right.
and it was like the whole time I was sitting there, they had an emergency surgery that pushed me back a little bit. So my anesthesiologist was sitting there just chatting away, and I was so calm. It was just unbelievable. I mean,
Mm,
before, I'd had surgeries before, and I was just like just bouncing off the wall, just
mhm,
frantic with anxiety. I was cool as a cucumber, and I even though I was still saying this in my head, I'm like, I kept saying, I can't believe how calm I am.
you
Like I
didn't
was
recognize yourself.
almost happy,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is insane, you know. And even when they wheel me into the surgery, and those rooms are terrifying. They're big, they're bright lights everywhere, they're cold, it's sterile, it's a bit off-putting, to
Right.
someone who's not used to it.
Mhm,
Um, and put me on the table, and I was still saying it. I'm just going to keep repeating it. I was still calm. And I just remember as he put the mask over my face, he said, "Sweet dreams." And I was still consciously, saying Ho'oponopono. And next thing I know, my eyes open and I hear it. I wasn't consciously saying it. It's the first thing that came to my mind. It came
wow.
into my head.
Yeah,
As soon as my consciousness returned, that's what I heard inside my head. And I'm
wow.
like, is this done? Like, I'm trying to figure out, are we done? Or, because I'm still hearing this.
Right,
Not
right.
actually saying it. I'm not consciously doing it, but I'm hearing it.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's like it stayed with me the whole time. I went to sleep saying it. I woke up saying it. I can't explain it. I don't know what happened, but it was calming. I still was calm.
Now, before all of this was happening in your life, were you pursuing, like a deeper path or, I mean, did this, looking back, do you think that this event happened sort of, it was born out of a prayer, or it was, I mean, this was a real transition in your life, it seems like.
It was a moment. I've been a Reiki master for about 30 years.
Mm,
So I've been on the spiritual path for quite a while, but only probably about the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, it's really escalated.
mm,
I've really started, doing some shadow work, um, went through a dark night of the soul, you know, and really started looking at me, at trauma in my life, um, and really trying to elevate. I'm like, it's time to move up.
yep.
Let's elevate. So I was on a conscious path to do that, and to be more of the light, and
Mhm,
not so negative, and actually put some negative people, out of my life,
mhm,
because of it, because I'm like, I don't want to deal with that anymore.
right.
Life is too short,
Yep.
and I want positive. You
Yeah.
choose to be happy. You can choose to be happy. You can choose to be unhappy.
Mhm. Right.
It's up to you. I choose to be happy.
Yep.
um, I didn't always choose to be happy, but
Right.
once I figured out it was my choice,
Yes.
yeah, I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, I want that.
You're like, yes, this is my decision.
Yeah. So
Um,
yeah.
okay, well, there's another part that I really love here too, where you said, she checks my chart at the end of the bed. Now, this is your nurse. She's coming in, she's taking care of you, and you're coming out of surgery, continuing to chant. You're still in that zone. But, at some point, you're going to have pain. So she comes in and she says, that was quite an extensive surgery. You had a lot of broken bones. Did they tell you that you have a plate and screws holding it together now? It's like, wow, thanks for the news.
Yeah.
Yes, I said, they told me after the surgery yesterday. And you don't have any pain right now? She repeats. No, I tell her. No, I tell her again. You should still take this pain pill. I guess I skipped the part that she's trying to give you a pain pill. You should still take this pain pill. You will definitely have pain after doing physical therapy. If you take this pill now, the pain won't be so bad later. I explained to her that I would rather not take a pain pill since I have zero pain and that I'm willing to take my chances with physical therapy. Can we please wait and see? I beg her. She finally relents and tells me the pill will be available when I need it. So this is amazing to me, and it made me think of a lot of different things. And one of the questions, which is kind of a rabbit trail question, is not really a direct question, but it just, this idea, of course, she's doing her job. She's a nurse. You're coming out of surgery. She knows you're going to be in pain. She's seen a gazillion people in pain after surgery. And so she's trying to,
Sure,
get
sure.
ahead of the pain by giving you this pill.
Mhm.
And you had no pain.
No, I had zero pain. I had 2 incisions running up from my foot halfway up my leg on both sides. I don't know how many stitches, metal holding all these broken bones together. I had, when I tell you zero pain, I had no pain at all. And, I've worked in hospitals long enough to know, they often will give you something for pain before you do like physical therapy because it kind of,
Yeah.
will offset it. But because I had no pain, I'm like, this was like a narcotic. I'm like, I really don't want it. It wasn't like she was giving me a Tylenol.
Right.
It was like a heavy duty pain pill.
Right.
Like, I really, really don't want to take that, particularly when I have like no pain. And, I know having worked with a lot of nurses, they see all kinds of things in the hospital.
Right.
And I like to think that was a moment that she'll remember. Because I see them, and I hear them tell these stories about patients that did this, or,
Right.
patients who said, they're not going to walk again. They get up and walk, that
Right.
kind of thing,
Yep.
like, but you're not supposed to be doing that. Well, I was supposed to be having pain. I was having no pain.
Right.
And, so I like to think, that was my story for her.
Yep.
It's like, sorry, there's no pain. And there was no pain after physical therapy. This was the next morning after the surgery. And the physical therapist came, we did physical therapy. And the thing was, I had no pain anywhere. I took a hard fall. Nothing, I had no scratches, no scrapes. My arms
Wow.
weren't sore, like nothing. There,
My
when I say
goodness.
no pain, there was no pain.
Wow.
And I should have been feeling like achy, something
Something
from a fall.
just happened to your body.
Yeah.
So what it makes me think about is, can we learn just as much from having no pain when we're supposed to have pain? I mean, we already know that we learn so much when we have pain and we think, wait a minute, this isn't supposed to happen to me. But when we expect pain and it doesn't show up, I think there's just as much to learn from that. That's the thing that just popped into my head, like,
Absolutely.
because you stand in awe of both for
Yeah.
different reasons.
Yes.
Because we have expectations and pain, what's the saying? Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Yes.
Sometimes we suffer because of our own pain, but to not suffer, to not have physical pain when it just would make sense to have
Right.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I've had pain before. I was in a car accident
Mhm.
and I took, narcotic for about 2 or 3 days after that because I hurt so bad. This
Mm.
was many years ago. And so I know what that pain is. And I was amazed. I'm like, okay, they've cut my leg open on both sides, put all kinds of metal in there, pieced things back together. That should hurt.
Mhm.
By all definition, that should be hurting somewhere,
Right.
even just the incision.
Yeah.
And but it didn't.
Yeah.
And I was amazed. I kept thinking, I kept waiting.
Mhm.
I was waiting. Okay, when's it going to start? Maybe I'm still, under some spell of the anesthesia from
Right.
yesterday. You know,
Right.
maybe that's still because I'm very sensitive to drugs, and I'm like,
Mhm.
well, maybe it's the anesthesia's causing me not to have pain.
Right.
Because it takes a while for it to get out of your body. So I'm
Yep.
like, okay, well, that's it. But I kept waiting for the pain to start. I'm like, okay, there's no pain. Meanwhile, I'm still saying the whole Ho'oponopono. That's still going on because it is keeping me calm and making me feel positive.
Right.
So, and little did I know at that point what lay ahead. That was the whole thing. I thought, okay, they've fixed my ankle. Now I can go home.
Mm.
Mm-mm. Nope, that wasn't the plan. That
They
was
were like,
not the plan.
listen, we're not gonna make you suffer with this kind of pain, but you
Right.
are gonna have a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of pain.
Yeah. You're not done yet.
Right. All right. So the next part of your story I loved when now you're in the rehab. Were you moved out of the hospital or was the rehab in the hospital?
No, they took me by ambulance to a different rehab hospital. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said in this part of your story, I rolled my wheelchair because you're in the rehab, you're going through therapy, and you're starting to look around at your neighbors. And I rolled my wheelchair next door, stopping in front of the door. The woman sitting there looked up, smiled, and said hello. Her room was magnificent. It was filled with books and art, my favorite things, and I told her that. She said the artwork was hers, done by many, many years before. She invited me to come in, and we spent the remainder of the rainy November afternoon chatting about types of paint and our favorite authors. It did my soul good, and I was hoping it was the same for her. During my entire stay there, she continued to stay in her room, but I was always a welcome visitor, she said. I continued to ask the same questions of the universe. What am I supposed to be learning here? The answer was not forthcoming, not yet. Um, I love this part of your story. I love the whole story, because it's so clear that there was like a masterful weaving of, this spirit wants to do life with us. And that's what it looked like.
Right.
Being on the outside looking into your story, you could just see that. And then there's always somebody that we go and we meet, right? Or we encounter. And so um tell me about that part of your story and what that meant to you.
Um, the when I was in the rehab hospital, um, I just wanted to go home. I hated it there. I couldn't get up. I was non-weight bearing for 8 weeks. Like couldn't stand up, couldn't put any weight on that leg at all. And I just wanted out. Like that's all I could think about. I just want to go home. And the nurses would come in and talk to me basically because I was the youngest one there. And it was in a like a retirement village. It was a
Mhm.
beautiful place, absolutely
Mm.
gorgeous. And this they had this rehab hospital, and residents who lived there, if they got hurt or sick or something, they could come there instead of having to
Mhm.
go into town and go to regular hospital. So there was all kinds of people there, and this woman who was the nurses came in. They were telling me about different residents who were there, and she said, the woman next door to you lost her husband, and they'd been married I don't know, 50 years, long, long time.
Mm.
And she said she will not come out of her room at all for any reason. Like she's in that room and she will not come out. I don't know what kind of medical care she needed, but she had, I guess they'd had an apartment. It was like a big retirement complex. They had apartments, villas, all kinds of things there.
Mhm.
And she had moved out of that after her husband died, I guess, and moved into this rehab hospital. And, they had assisted living and things like that there as well. Because she had books, she had her bookcases, she had her artwork, like it was set up like a little apartment, except it was just this one room with a bathroom.
Mhm.
And the nurse said she will not come out. Like we just bring her meals and she will not leave the room. And now she got up and got dressed. She was always dressed nicely. She could move around like she
Mm.
wasn't in a wheelchair. And she said, maybe you could, go over there and talk to her. And I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'm not doing anything else, except sitting here. So about 3 hours of physical therapy a day. But besides that,
Right.
it's a lot of hours left. So um, I decided one day I'll just wheel myself over there. And I stopped and, I kind of waved at her and she smiled and waved. And I said something about her artwork and I'm like, I really like, I said, I paint. And I said, I see you have a lot of books. I write and I read. And so we started kind of just chatting. I'm out in the hall with this wheelchair and she's like, well, come on in. And so I came in and so we talked for a long time but she would never, the whole time I was there, she still would not, come out of her room. But, you know, it was just really interesting to me, the connection that I had with her. It was almost like that could be me,
Mm.
because I'm very introverted and, tend to kind of isolate.
Mhm.
And um, I mean, she wasn't unhappy. It wasn't that she was unhappy. She wasn't negative. She just did not want to leave that room for whatever reason. She never
Mhm.
said, but I would often, stop and chat with her, or they would bring us tea. She'd say, "Can you bring us some tea?" And they'd bring us tea.
Mhm.
So we'd sit and have tea in the afternoon and visit. And it was healing for me. I'd
Mm.
like to think it was for her as well, but it helped ease me through those hours
Yeah.
there. And I can't help but think those hours must have been just as interminable for her
Mhm.
as they were for me, even more so for her because I knew I was going to eventually go home.
Right.
I
Right.
had a home to come back to.
Yeah.
And for her, like she was just basically waiting, I guess, to die.
Mm.
She was in her 80s, but I mean, she
Mhm.
would look fairly healthy.
Mhm.
But um, I hope it eased hours for her.
Right. Yeah. What do you think if you could had to if you had to think about one of the purposes of her coming into your life, what do you think that purpose might have been?
I think I think it's like you don't have to isolate yourself.
Mm.
You know, it was serving no purpose for her to do that. There was a whole community out there. I mean, they had all kinds of um, activities um, that you could go to. There was like a social
Mhm.
counselor basically, and they made jewelry, they baked cookies, like and they would come and get you. Like they would come wheel me down there and say, "Here, we're going to bake a cookie," or "Let's make bracelets today."
Mm.
I wasn't keen on it, but I'm like, I did it. Um, what I did, they had chair yoga. I could do yoga in my chair. They had chair
Mm.
exercises. I went and did those. So there was a myriad of things you
Mhm.
could do there. And she didn't, and that was basically me.
Mm,
There were so many things I could have been doing, but I was too busy taking care of people.
mm,
I was way too busy.
yeah.
When I fell, I was in Austin. I live in Houston. I was in Austin taking care of my mother
Oh, wow.
when this happened.
So it's interesting to me, and I think about this with whoever I meet in life, the good, the bad, the ugly, is if I meet someone and I feel like so drawn to them and I can see these qualities in them that I just love and I admire, I think it's a mirror. If I meet somebody and I see some qualities that I think, oh, I don't know about how I feel about that. It's a mirror. I mean, do you feel that life sort of is always bringing us around to the mirror, not in any other way, to just because we have a desire to be more aware, there's like a lot of help that the universe provides to help us be more aware of ourselves and showing us other people and maybe what they struggle with. Just it sounds like she was a mirror and you
Yes,
needed to think, you needed to see yourself outside of yourself, see yourself objectively, and maybe what you were missing out on, or that you didn't want to just only be taking care of other people. You wanted to somehow
right.
start to reclaim yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I had all these abilities. I could paint. Was I painting at the time? No, because I didn't have time.
Mm,
I was taking care of people,
yeah,
everyone besides me. So yeah, it was definitely a mirror. And I do think the universe shows you, you know, is this you? Is
right,
this good or bad? Like good or
right.
bad, it'll show you.
Yeah,
And particularly when you're open to it and
right.
when you're looking for that,
Yes,
you know. Yeah, because there's things about all of us that, you're like, no, that's not me. That couldn't be me.
right. I
Might
know.
be,
Yep,
some days it might be.
right.
So
Exactly.
yeah, life's not perfect. No, none of us are perfect.
Right.
We've all got flaws.
Hmm.
But it's just how you address them. I try to be positive. I've always been an optimistic person. I've never
Hmm.
been negative.
Hmm.
The glass is always full,
Hmm.
not even half full, it's full. And
That's
it's
awesome.
no matter what, that's always been my outlook, which
And
is
you have a beautiful smile to go with it. I just
thank
want to
you.
say, you just
Thank
have an
you.
absolutely stunning smile.
Thank you.
All right. So there was this one last part of your story, and I wish I could go through all of it. But as we kind of wind this down, I wanted to just read this one clip. Later that night, as I sat in my room, I pondered on how good it felt to push through fear. Fear in my acceptance of it has always been part of my life. I had never pushed through it, ever. I had no idea you could, much less how good it would feel to do so. I thought about how much I had allowed fear to ruin my life. As I sat there, I began to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. How I never asked anyone for help, how I allowed fear to dictate what I would and would not do, how I consciously took care of others and neglected myself. Yes, the universe had asked me to sit down and learn some lessons. I will never forget that feeling of feeling the fear and doing it anyway. I love this part. I think everyone can relate to you know, just the fear. And so talk about like how you moved through being in the place of not asking for help and just being gripped with fear to, moving out of that. And because this was a total transformation. This
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
you're going on a field trip, little lady. We got a 3 month, we get a 3 month workshop for you,
Yep.
paid by the universe. So,
Most definitely. I so clearly remember the night. It was at night, about 8 o'clock at night, when they transferred me from the hospital over to the rehab hospital. And so it was, and the rehab hospital pretty much shut down about 7:30. A lot of residents would already be asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And they wheeled me in. It was quiet. They put me in the room, closed the door. It was a beautiful room. It was a fairly new place. It's big, huge bathroom. It was gorgeous. But they put me in there, closed the door, and I'm laying there in the bed. And they've put, my suitcases and stuff over to the side. And I'm like, okay, I realized, I think for the very first time I guess I'd been alone in like a week since the accident. And I'm like, I am totally helpless. I could not get out of the bed. I couldn't put weight on that leg. I couldn't reach anything. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't get a drink of water.
Wow.
I was just overwhelmed suddenly with just like, if I need anything, I have to ask someone for help.
Wow.
And I have never, ever been in that position.
Mm.
And it was frightening. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't do nothing. There was not one thing I could do.
Mm.
And, the nurse came in and she had got me set up where I could reach things and,
Mm-hmm.
but still, if I needed to go to the bathroom, I had to call someone to help me get up, get in the wheelchair, wheel me in there, it was like a whole production.
Wow.
Just to go to the bathroom, entire production. And so that, it got easier with time. I got into a routine. If you've never dressed yourself laying down in a bed, that's interesting. Everyone should try that once. I remember the nurse, I had her put the clothes, we put a chair next to the bed and I had her put all the clothes on it and where I could reach them the next morning. And so I woke up early. And so I'm like, and I had by then a reacher, things that could help me, grab things and pull things on. And when they came in the next morning, I was laying in bed dressed. Now it took me an hour to
Wow.
put on pants and a shirt, but I did it. It took an hour, but I did it.
Wow.
And she's like, how did you do that? And did you get out of bed? I'm like, no. And they took the wheelchair. They would put the wheelchair in the bathroom because I think they were afraid I would try to, which they were probably right. But I said, no, it was on there and I got dressed in the bed. And, because I was like determined to get out of there.
Yeah.
But it was, the day that I had to push through that fear was in physical rehabilitation. And she wanted me to take a step up. By then I was some weight bearing. And she's like, I want you to take one step up. They had these little staircases in the rehab room. And I'm like, I'm not stepping on anything. Like, there's no way, because that meant I was going to have to put some weight on all those broken bones, which had been in a cast for about 2 months. They should have been healing by then.
Right.
But still, I was terrified.
Yeah.
Terrified. I'm like, I can't step up and put weight on that leg. I can't, even though the doctor says you can do it, wasn't it? And I was crying. I'm like, I can't. She said, you can. She was talking calmly. She's like, you can do it. You can. And then she said, push through the fear. She said, push through the fear. She almost whispered it. And I'm like, I have to do it. Like, she wasn't going to stop. Like, I knew eventually, I'm like, we're going to stand here all day because she's not going to let me not do this. And when I did it, and she's like, it's just one step up and back down, and we're done. That's it. I'm like, surely I can do one step.
Right.
And that feeling when I did it, it was, I clearly remember it. Like, I felt it like in my chest, like pushing through that fear. And I think that was the first time in my life I'd ever pushed through fear. And because I was always afraid, I was afraid to do this, afraid to do that. What if this happens? What if that happens? And so to be able to realize that you can push through fear and not let fear hold you back that opened up a whole new world.
Yeah.
I wish I'd learned that lesson sooner.
Right.
I really do.
It's hard when we can't learn all the lessons all at once, but
I know. Been great if we could.
but I love that. And one of the things that I think that pushing through the fear that one time, it's just like that's all it took.
Yeah. Yeah. That was it. Like my life changed
Yeah.
that moment.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And
no longer afraid.
I asked the question, was this a gentle, loving way of the universe teaching you a beautiful lesson on fear and grace? How would you sum it up? Which I think you kind of just did, but why would someone go through this exact same scenario, yet not develop the gratitude or deem it as a beautiful transformation? What quality, if you had superpowers, and we know you have superpowers, what quality, if you had superpowers to do so, would you pass on to someone else so that they too could experience this kind of spiritual transformation? So, you were able to move through this and absorb all the beautiful lessons, from the praying to the no pain to meeting your companion along the way, that mirror. I mean, all the things you absorbed all. It was like, here's your workshop, and you're like, great, thank you. I have my pen and my paper, and I'm a wonderful student. But not, we're not always like that through life. And then many times, I think people could go through something like what you did and suffer intensely. So if someone was about to embark on the same kind of journey, what would you want them to have?
Courage.
Courage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was scary along the way.
Yeah.
Me and the universe had a lot of arguments during the 3 months. I'm like, are we done yet?
Yeah.
And
are we done here?
And I think a lot of it is your mindset. Like, in talking to some of the nurses there, one of the nurses in the first few days that I was there came in and she said, do you want to get out of here faster? And I said, yeah. She said, stay out of the bed. So basically,
that's such a life lesson.
Yeah.
Like,
stay out of the bed.
Stay out of the bed.
I could have just gone to bed. I could still be there.
Yeah.
I could literally still be in a wheelchair. I could have decided not to do the work, not to learn to walk again, and just sit in a wheelchair. But that's not what I wanted.
Right. And there's so
the whole time I was sitting there in the wheelchair, I realized, I don't like this.
Yeah.
So, okay, you don't like it. You're going to have to do some work. And that's going to involve pushing through your fear. Guess what? Surprise.
But everything, we're talking about the physical, but it's such a parallel to the spiritual, like doing the work. You're uncomfortable. You don't like where you are. And it's like, there's no easy way. You have to move it. And you know what we don't like? We don't like baby steps.
No.
We want to go from 0 to 100, be done.
Yeah. That's not how it works. I learned each lesson as they came up.
Exactly.
All the little lessons. What's today's lesson? Usually there was almost one every day, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be open to that. I mean, like I said, a lot of it's your mindset. I could still be there. I could be in a wheelchair and say, poor me, I'm just going to sit in this wheelchair the rest of my life and let people wait on me.
Right.
That's not what I wanted. I'm like, no, I have a life to live. And I think, again, meeting the woman next door, that comes into play. It's like, no, I want more than that. I don't want to sit in a room somewhere. And I think all that, eventually tied up into one story.
Yes.
So
I love it. So I want to go back to the beginning where I want to make a correction, because I said something to the effect of that your story, the title was Ho'oponopono. Did I say that right? But it's actually, I just want to make the correction that the title, which is a beautiful title, The Accident, or How the Universe Asked Me to Sit Down.
Yeah,
That's your title,
that's the title.
just for the record.
Yeah.
All right, so one last bonus question. What is your gift to the world? What is your message to the world? What if you only had one, and tomorrow you were going to transition out of this life into the next life, and you wanted to leave one lesson, one gift, one parting gift to the world?
Be grateful for everything you have.
Mm,
Gratitude is everything. Everything. And I didn't realize that for a long time. But it's the first thing I say every morning. I'm grateful for. I just start listing them off when I go to bed at night. I'm grateful for.
mm,
And I think, it changes your outlook on life. It definitely did mine. But I think gratitude brings in everything else. Gratitude will bring in the love.
right.
Gratitude brings in forgiveness. You can love, you can forgive. If you're grateful for what you have, no matter what it is, you can be grateful for anything. Like, you don't have to have a lot of material things. I could be living in a cardboard box. I could find something to be grateful for.
Yep.
Everybody can,
Yep.
but not everybody does.
Right.
And that would be, be grateful. Be grateful for what you have today.
Thank you, Penny. All right, I have one more request. Let's
Okay.
close this with the Ho'oponopono prayer. Can we chant it together?
You can.
All right, ready?
Yes.
I love you. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Please forgive
forgive
me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. This was
Thank you,
beautiful.
Colleen. Thank you so much.